quite the same quarterback. I couldn't pay Brock a fortune. I like him. I don't love him. Why should I love him? What do you see with him?
I think there's so many ways for us to come to a conclusion or an opinion on somebody, right? So stats, depending on who you are and what you're doing for a living, right? Like stats is one, tape for certain people.
Sure.
If you're in the media, tape's less relevant. If you're in a front office, stats are less relevant. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So depends on what context you're looking at it through. I, with Brock, look at it like, what situations have we put him in and how has he handled it? And when you've had a healthy, good roster, he's basically played like one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and at least in my opinion. Last season, the way that the plays that he made, the mistakes that he didn't make and avoided, but then the way that he went through the playoffs and played great, didn't change the whole leadership element that really only the people in the building can speak to, right? We can all have opinions, but you're there. And Sam Darnold backed him up last year, so I got a chance to hear just how mature and focused and confident this guy remained.
He's a bright kid.
All the way through the Super Bowl, right? And so if we build around him, this is a guy that I don't know if it starts with the 5, but it definitely starts with a 3 or 4 if you're asking me. Like you give him a ton of money, you give him a 3-year deal.
Okay.
If the left tackle's hurt and the running back's out and the receiver's out, he's not as good. Well, if you pay the quarterback, then John Lynch's job is to build around him. And I think there's 2 things the Niners have done a really good job of. One of them is evaluating talent, finding good players. I don't know the name of the running back for them who's playing well right now. The second thing they've done is develop players. And so if you're a Niners fan, you go, let's lock in Brock Purdy. I don't like the whole franchise him and make him prove it. He's proven it. So pay him and then do a great job of evaluating talent and developing the talent around him. And he may lose Debo this year for whatever reason. Well, you drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round. I think they did a good job evaluating talent. Now it's time to develop them.
I want to go.
Yeah. Thank you, Jordan Palmer, for spitting that wisdom. All right, for dropping some knowledge, especially talking about tape versus film and versus not meaning that much to the media and stats. Media does love stats. So do fans, honestly. Stats. This guy's got 4,768 yards, and this or that. And it's like, well, look at the film. Look at what you're fundamentally seeing this player do. I'll never understand why things like the eye test are just, seen as like less intelligent way of looking at things or a less analytical way to look at things. When in reality, it's just like, it's more obvious when you know what you're looking for. You can see it. Yeah, listen, I agree. Brock Purdy, when you put a great roster around him, he plays like a legitimate top quarterback in the NFL. If you're going to look, if your baseline is we need to find a quarterback who plays great when we don't have a great roster around him, I don't know what to tell you, man. I really don't, because the only quarterbacks who honestly legitimately do that are the only ones that use their physicality. I mean, at this point, it really is just Lamar and Josh Allen. Not even Mahomes, because Mahomes just doesn't use his body like that. He just doesn't. He doesn't use his body like that. There's a reason why, if you want to talk about stats, his stats went down when his receivers and O-line are not great. His stats goes down. Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen can find a way because their bodies, they're so physically imposing, whether through speed, strength, or power. But that can't be your baseline for who's a great quarterback, who deserves a contract, and who doesn't. Do you want a quarterback who can overcome some of these issues? When a wide receiver goes down, when a couple O-line go down? Yes, absolutely. Which I really believe we've seen Brock Purdy do. You just can't expect them to consistently do it. Regularly do it. It's a tough thing to try to always figure out, because I don't think it's always 100% the same answer every time in terms of what you're expecting a quarterback to be able to do in a various situation. Because if you have a great coach but a banged up roster, then I expect that quarterback to look better. It's why, for the most part, like, I expect Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid to be able to find a way through some of those injuries because of that combination. Now, if Andy Reid wasn't there, I would not hold Patrick Mahomes' feet to the fire. You know, I would hold it to a different standard. And same thing for Andy, for that matter, if I'm trying to evaluate it through, like, you know, how good of a coach is Andy Reid? So it always kind of moves around. Not to mention, it is always the spectrum of how good a quarterback is when the circumstances are great, all the way down to when the circumstances are awful. So when you see a quarterback who comes up short in a great situation with a great roster, and then you see him not be able to overcome some of the limitations of a roster, you're kind of like, well, then what am I doing here? That's the Dak Prescott. I've seen Dak Prescott with an awesome roster, with lots of weapons, a run game, etc., etc. And I've seen him come up short. I've seen him play not good enough for him to not overcome or help lead the team that was already great or had some great pieces if they were kind of coming up small or whatever it may be. I didn't see him be the difference maker in those moments. I saw Brock Purdy do that, both against the Packers and the Lions. I saw Brock Purdy do that. So not only did I see him play great in different years with slightly different rosters, but for the most part, the meat and potatoes of the same roster, did I see him play great when those players were playing great? But when those players were coming up a little bit short, or they just weren't able to, whether you want to blame Shanahan or whoever, or just great defense, those players weren't able to be maximized. I saw Purdy be able to take off. And I mean, like, just from as a quarterback, not like his legs take off. I did not see that out of Dak Prescott. When things were going wrong against the Packers, what did Dak Prescott do to resolve that, to help that? Nothing. He was contributing to it. And we've seen that many times, also against the 49ers, multiple times. That's the difference. And that is now what a Patrick Mahomes does that is special, or Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, is that they can maximize the roster around them. They can help to a large degree, or a more regular degree, overcome an inferior roster, a bad defense, a bad coach, whatever it may be. But also when those great players are there and are just not able to be part of the game plan, or just in that specific time of the game, they're able to kind of force their way through. They're able to find that way. They're able to get that first down, to get that touchdown, to convert, whatever it may be. And we need to just stop pretending like all quarterbacks can play great when surrounded by great talent, because it's just not true. Will it help elevate them? Sure. But it's just not that simple. It's really not. And I'm so curious, because it says, 49ers plan to pay Purdy lucrative deal. That could mean anything. I mean, seriously. I mean, that could be 35, 45, 55. I mean, it could be so many different things, honestly. And I do remain confident that Purdy's not going to be demanding some super, high-paying contract. I really think he would take a lower deal, a deal in the, in the upper 30s, low 40s. And if that's the case, then that actually is, like, massive. The amount of money that they save, and the way what they will be able to do, and the players will be able to get and pay for, would be huge. Huge. And that will actually only enhance Brock Purdy. That's actually would be one of Brock Purdy's, like, attributes that would make him more valuable, because you can build a better team. So, we'll find out. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Brock Purdy? Do you agree with Jordan Palmer that he's actually been a great quarterback, and that he does deserve a lucrative deal? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.